Would I be the asshole if I go on a trip that my cousin organized on the same day of my father's wedding with the woman he started dating 2 weeks later of my mother's death? Original post, February 27, 2024. My 18 female father is going to marry his girlfriend next week, a day before my cousin's 21 female birthday. My mother died 4 years ago and almost 2 weeks later, I don't think it was even 2 weeks after that, my father was dating this woman. I was grieving and I had to tolerate a total stranger in the house. My father told me that he met the woman at work. The doubt that she has always been my father's mistress is always in my head, but I don't know, I don't like her anyways. My cousin organized a trip to the beach, which will last a week. It was given to her by my aunt and uncle because she won a scholarship overseas in a college. My aunt and uncle won't go to the wedding, some of my other cousins won't go to the wedding to go on the trip too. My cousin arranged the trip entirely on purpose to ruin my father's wedding since my mother was her godmother. My father was mad at her, but my cousin told him that she was not going to cancel her trip for a second wedding, or in her literal words by text, "I'm much more interested in seeing the grass grow than in your wedding." Today my father found out that I will be going on the trip too and he's totally mad at me. He even cried telling me that everyone is punishing him for finding love. I asked him if my mother wasn't the love of his life then and he kept crying saying that I don't understand because I'm too young. He says that every time I try to talk about something serious with him, even when I want to talk about politics or important things, it's his way of shutting me up, and he just finally found love, his words. He said his girlfriend is the real love of his life. Good for him, I guess. My mother always said he was the love of her life until the last day, and because of his words my mother was never the love of his life. I feel sad to think about how my mother would feel if she hear my father say that he finally found real love when in my mother's eyes and words he was her soulmate. Can you really find the love of your life in 2 weeks? I understand that grief is different for everyone, but who grieves spending Christmas with your new girlfriend and not with your daughter who lost her mother? He neglected me since I was a teen. Everything was always about how he feels and wants. I told him that I will go on the trip, and I don't want to attend his wedding, and he kept crying. My paternal grandmother called me to pray and tell me that I am being unfair to my father who just found love again. But I just don't want to go, neither be near to him. I stopped being close to my dad a long time ago. That my perception of what a father figure is has been almost totally erased from my mind. Edit. My parents didn't have an open marriage or anything like that. My mother wouldn't have thought twice before divorcing him if he hinted something like that because she was always a 100% traditional woman in relationship matters. I remember her disgust about those topics. My mother always made it clear that she would divorce if she thought the marriage was bad. She was always totally open with me about those issues, even personal matters, as we had too much trust in each other, so I'm sure that in her eyes, she had a healthy and normal marriage. We were all shocked by the fact that my father introduced his girlfriend when we were all grieving. It's something no one understands to this day. Info: my mother died really quickly from a virus. She died within a month and a few days, and no one expected her to die. Not even my mother expected her health to get like this. She believed to the last day that she would live. The person who took the most care of her in the hospital was my grandmother. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, not the asshole. Do what you want. If you don't respect their relationship, why would you want to go anyway? Besides, I get the feeling this woman was involved with your dad before your mom passed, because who moves someone in 2 weeks after their wife dies? A cheater, that's who. He's just mad that everyone sees through his bullshit. I wouldn't go either. OP, she didn't move into the house instantly, but she went every day and stayed overnight. It was really uncomfortable. I always suspected that she was my father's mistress, but I never asked, because my father would deny it anyway. Commenter 2, gosh, he abandoned you when you were 14 years old to spend Christmas with his new girlfriend? Right after you lost your mother, and mind you, his wife? Not the asshole, but he sure is. OP, when Christmas came, he decided to go on a trip with his girlfriend, without even inviting me because I never liked Christmas anyways. I spent that Christmas with my mother's family. Update, March 1, 2024. Thanks to the comments that day I decided to talk with my father and ask him if he cheated on my mother. I got really anxious and just needed to know the truth because it was something that made me feel really nervous. After insisting and hearing him cry, he confessed to me that he had been talking and going to places with his girlfriend/friend for a while my mother was still alive and even before she got sick. My mother didn't know that my father had that kind of relationship, and it was all behind her back. When my mother died, his girlfriend, at that time friend, approached him to comfort him. He didn't say exactly when, but I guess that obviously it was between those 2 weeks. I wanted to think it wasn't the day my mom passed away because it was unexpected, and we were all too busy. My father told me that it was the first time they had physical contact, but he always felt guilty about his friendship with that woman. I'm not very familiar with the subject, but I think it's what people call emotional cheating. I only know that he kept it a secret because he knew he was doing something bad. I asked him if he and my mother were having marital problems and he said no, not at all. According to my father, his friendship with his girlfriend was something he planned to keep as a secret forever when my mother was alive and healthy. Father told me that he thought he loved my mother until he kissed his girlfriend and decided that we only live once, so that's why he took her home just 2 weeks later after my mom died and did everything he wanted with her. My father's logic was that his job gave him a week of mourning, so according to him, 2 weeks was enough mourning for me. I told him that while he fulfilled his fantasies, I was alone in our home and he kept saying the same things like, "OP, you were almost 15 years old, you were already a woman, at your age I was already working blah blah blah." I don't think I'll ever get to that level of maturity to understand his mind. I asked him if he thought about cutting off contact with his girlfriend if my mother found out and he said something like, "No, I wouldn't cut contact with his girlfriend's name, it was just an innocent secret and your mother never found out." I told him my mother would cut off his balls if she heard him say that and he started crying again. But anyway, all of this doesn't change anything, the result is still the same, a father who neglected his daughter. I said a lot of things to him. I've been going to the psychologist for years, so I know how to manage my feelings, but at that moment I told him everything I've been keeping to myself, and he cried again. Isn't that weird? Cry when you're the one who screwed up? I only feel bad for my mother and myself. For now, I warned him that I am going to rent the house to make money and cut off contact with him when he leaves the house with his girlfriend. He didn't complain about that because at least he always agreed that the house is mine. I'm not going to leave him homeless or anything like that. I'm not going to his wedding, I'm not going to invite him to my wedding in the future. I don't care if my future kids don't have a grandparent or anything like that. I think years ago I lost both parents, but luckily, I have my family. I see myself as a person who had to mature quickly. My mother left me in charge of my father, but my father maybe decided to bury his paternal instinct next to my mother, or maybe he never had one. He was never a regular father, so I don't care if I don't see him again. I don't feel anything for my father's girlfriend, but I just don't like her because I would never date a man who neglected his daughter, and she's going to marry a man like that. Anyways, we never argued, and I don't hate her at all. I hope she's my father's final real love. There are people who commented saying that I was making my father look bad on purpose and that I was probably a brat who was a bad behavior just because I'm a teen and my mother died. I don't understand what kind of education those people had, but being a teenager doesn't mean that we let ourselves be carried away by our feelings. Sometimes a minor can speak much calmer and in control than an adult, and that doesn't mean that I want to play myself as a saint. I really don't know where I went wrong for my father to prefer to forget that he has a daughter. I don't know what I could have done wrong. Maybe the key was to yell at him and make a tantrum to get his attention, as some comments said, but I stopped caring a long time ago. OP's dad was definitely having an emotional affair, if not a real one. Also, who brings your new girlfriend home right after your wife died? Like, wait a few months. OP, you're 100% not the asshole, and the fact that the rest of your family agrees really say something about your dad. Story 2. Am I the asshole for not wanting to live with my father-in-law anymore? Original post, July 4, 2023. My husband, 32 mil, and I have been married for 2 years. His dad and stepmom are going through an ugly divorce, so his half-brother, 17 mil, has moved in with us to live for a year till he starts college. My husband loves his brother, treats him like a little kid, and is overprotective of him. I find father-in-law's behavior obnoxious, and we are having too many arguments over this. He's been with us for only a month and a half, and I can't stand it, and I really don't think I can put up with it for a year. It started off with him making messes and throwing away leftovers. Since I do most of the cooking and cleaning, it was increasing my workload. My husband's list of chores has not increased by his presence, so he was dismissive of my complaints. Since my husband wasn't saying anything, I tried telling him to pick up after himself. Brother-in-law retaliated by spanking my butt. Anytime I tell him to do something, he hits my butt hard and laughs. My husband told him to knock it off, but he keeps doing it, and my husband treats it as if he's just playing around. No big deal. Not only is it very disrespectful, but it's really painful. After that, he started randomly picking me up and carrying me around. I am a little over 5 feet and 120 pounds, and he's a tall, stocky guy. I hate it, and my husband just thinks he's goofing around and trying to be friends with me. I worked from home and the other day when it was just him and me in the house, he picked me up and ran with me to my bedroom, and threw me on the bed. It really scared me, but he just laughed at me and left. My husband thinks I am being dramatic by being scared by this. I feel like his behavior is escalating, but my husband tells me to act like an adult and not blow up over a kid's playfulness. I am anxious every day and I am seriously thinking of moving out, though it'll be difficult to afford it. Am I the asshole for telling my husband that I don't feel safe in our home? ETA, thank you so much for your comments and for validating me. My husband had me confused and believed that I was overreacting. I am so relieved to hear from so many people that this is as dangerous and bad as I feel. I have packed a bag in my car and some important belongings and documents. I am 29 for those who asked. I forgot to put that in my post. I called and talked to my mother-in-law early in the morning. She's always been very nice to me, and at my wedding, she told me she thinks of me as her daughter. My mom passed away when I was young, and I don't have any siblings, so that it moved me very much. I was nervous about talking to her because I didn't want to ruin that relationship, but she was so shocked when she heard the details. She said she'd talked to my husband and father-in-law, and this was an unacceptable situation, and told me to come stay with her till it got resolved. My brother-in-law is out with his friends till tomorrow for 4th of July, so it gives me some time to have one more detailed discussion with my husband. I am also going to show him this Reddit post, and hopefully, his mom's talk and these comments will be a wake-up call. Update, July 7, 2023. I am very appreciative of everyone who commented on my last post and gave me encouragement. I won't be able to respond to all, but I appreciate it. I wasn't able to resolve this issue with my husband and I have moved out. I am trying to come to terms with the fact that this is the end of my marriage. My mother-in-law was on my side and talked to my husband about this situation, but he got more annoyed with me because he saw this as me creating more drama between my mother-in-law and my father-in-law and causing old grievances to rise. I showed him the Reddit post I made and the comments, and he accused me of presenting things in a lurid manner to get people on my side. He didn't even read all the discussions, just got enraged and closed the tab. My mother-in-law also talked to my father-in-law, who came down on my brother-in-law about his behavior. My father-in-law told my brother-in-law to leave our house and move in with him. Brother-in-law refused, saying he wants to stay with my husband. My husband came up with a solution that my brother-in-law was to stay in his room, and I should stay in my bedroom, lock the door, and not get out till he got home from work. This pissed me off more. I had packed a bag and my documents thinking of leaving anyway. Father-in-law talked to me and said that he doesn't like that we aren't getting along, and that brother-in-law will no longer stay with us. But the next day brother-in-law came into the house with a group of his friends. I simply grabbed my laptop and left. I am so grateful to the people who had suggested that I be packed and ready to go. I already had everything in my car and could leave with what I needed immediately. I am staying with my mother-in-law now. She is flabbergasted by my husband, who's told her that he'll never ask a close family member to leave his house. It is clear that my husband doesn't even like me, much less care about me at all. He hasn't spoken to me since I left. I am trying to figure out what I should do next. I obviously can't stay with my mother-in-law for long, especially since I need to start the divorce process. I could move back in with my dad, but he lives in another state and that'll make things hard. I don't have any savings and I am short on money. The majority of my paycheck goes into half of the mortgage and utilities on our house. We have a combined joint account. I have been foolishly spending a lot on decorating the house instead of saving up, and I suppose all that is gone now. I need to figure out my money situation so I can support myself. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, thanks for the update. I'm glad you didn't let this situation go on any longer, and that you had the courage to get out of the marriage when you realized you had a husband problem. You're young and you have a new and better beginning ahead of you. I like your parents-in-law. How did they raise such crappy sons? OP, my mother-in-law has been amazing, but she didn't raise my brother-in-law. That's my father-in-law's son from his second marriage. And father-in-law, well, I think it's good that he told brother-in-law to leave, but he was dismissive of the issue itself, acting like it was a bit of a spat between us. Commenter 2, thank you for this update. I am very pleased to hear that you are out and safe. I'm dreadfully sorry that your husband has proved himself to be so uncaring and, well, just a complete jerk. My advice, now, is to continue to have heart-to-hearts with your mother-in-law. She has some good life experience and may be able to help you in ways you don't realize. You might also offer to pay her some rent or for expenses. The most important thing is to start the divorce process immediately and force the sale of the house, or force your husband to refinance and buy you out of the mortgage. You don't have children, and the house seems to be your main large debt, so getting rid of it is essential. Also, Stop paying any utility bills that aren't in your name immediately. Send your husband a list so he knows to pay directly. Any utilities in your name should be put in his name immediately, so when you find a place of your own, you can get new accounts for your new place. If your husband gives you any guff about it, simply tell him they need to be switched or you will turn them off, and he can start from scratch. His choice. But, the point is that if you aren't living there, you shouldn't be paying for utilities. You need to start saving immediately. Also, and this one is super important, change every single password for every account before you do anything else. Every single one. You're going to be okay, OP, just don't get stuck or stalled waiting for your husband to stop pouting and get real. Start the process immediately and keep moving forward. Let your lawyer deal with your husband. Best of luck to you. OP. Yes, thank you. I need a checklist of things to do. I have been sitting in a depressed funk for the past few days feeling lost. But I can do all this for now. Commenter 3, just adding on, I'd probably freeze my creditor report until your finances are successfully separated, just in case. You should also consider filing a police report against your brother-in-law. He assaulted you multiple times. Even if it never goes anywhere, sadly likely, at least you'll have a record of it. Update, October 30th 2023, 3.5 months later. A few of you have been messaging me asking for updates, and for those who still care to know, the update is that my husband and I are getting divorced. We have been separated since I left home at that time. The house has been sold and I got the equity out of it. I got some kitchen appliances and some decor back, but for the most part, I lost the money I spent on furnishings, but that's okay, it could have been worse. After my last post, I had separated my money out, hired a lawyer, and handled utilities so I wouldn't be paying anything. My ex was shocked by my actions. He was waiting to call my bluff and couldn't believe I'd go so far so quickly. He didn't take my leaving seriously because I was staying at his mom's house. We had more arguments and I started realizing that he never would really hear me. He was always so focused on being right and having his way that he could twist reality to fit his needs. Looking back, it was always like that in our relationship, but I was in love and a pushover. We went into marital counseling. I agreed to go because mostly I wanted an acknowledgement from him that what went on was messed up, and also because my mother-in-law really pushed me to try to make it work with him. It was all a shit show because he denied a lot of egregious things and presented the issues as minor things that I was twisting up. He stuck to his viewpoint that father-in-law was simply goofing around, and I got offended because I haven't had siblings and don't know how they mess around with each other. After a few weeks of counseling, my ex agreed to have my brother-in-law move out, but he was acting as if he made this huge sacrifice for me, and I didn't believe it. I had already checked out of this relationship and knew I couldn't trust him anymore. My mother-in-law was very disappointed that I still wanted a divorce after her son compromised. I had moved out of my mother-in-law's house after a month of staying with her. I stopped contributing to the mortgage payments and got my own apartment. It was a risky thing to do, but I decided I'd take that hit to my credit history for my independence. I bet that it'd matter more to him, and that forced his hand into selling the house. It was sold as soon as it got on the market, so that was a huge relief. All my decorating paid off in that way, at least. I've stayed in touch with my mother-in-law and heard from her that my ex moved into a small apartment and brother-in-law had moved back with father-in-law. I also heard from some mutual friends that he's been telling everyone that the divorce is happening because I was jealous and controlling and tried to separate him from his family, and I was a nagging harpy to his baby brother. He already has a new girlfriend who's more family-oriented. I am waiting for the final divorce decree to be signed, and I hope there are no problems or delays there. I know a lot of you wanted me to make a police report about brother-in-law, but I didn't feel safe doing that. I don't have a support system that I can rely on if things go wrong, and I want to walk away from this with minimum harm. A lot of people have chided me for not hitting back, but at no point did I think I could do that and get away without taking a beating. I suppose I am not a very brave person, but I think I am looking at my chances realistically and doing what I can to keep myself reasonably safe. How could anyone not have a problem with their brother doing this to their wife? Like, I just don't see any way someone would be cool with that. I'm glad OP got out of that situation. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.